Welcome to Black Mountain Stories Preview Shorts. These are short fantasy and science fiction tales built around new worlds, strange magic, lost kingdoms, forgotten wars, and characters who may have much larger stories waiting for them. If you enjoy this one and want to hear what happens next, comment below. If enough people want more, we can turn this short into a full story. Now let's begin.
The last worshipper of Vaerun. Caelan Marr stood where no one important was meant to die. He stood at the outer edge of the ritual field, with cold mud around his boots, a spear in his hands, and the middle march breathing softly in the dark beyond the torchlight. Men called this place the borderlands because it was easier than calling it what it was, a wound. To the north, the moonwood began as a black wall of silver leaves and patient hate. Elven eyes watched from beneath those trees. Caelan could feel them even when he saw nothing. To the east, the red stones rose from the marsh like broken teeth. Orcish scouts moved there at dusk. Sometimes they sang before killing, sometimes they killed in silence. Both were worse than the tales told in taverns. To the west, dwarf envoys had sealed themselves inside an iron-ring pavilion and set hammer priests outside it, short and grim beneath black mail. The Fae had sent 3 ambassadors in white masks, 6 musicians with silver strings and smiles no sane man trusted. And the humans held the southern ridge, not proudly, not cleanly. They held it because someone had ordered them to. No great battle raged that night. Great battles were honest in their way. They came with horns, drums, banners, smoke, and enough screaming that a man understood the shape of his terror. This was worse. A skirmish in the reeds, a flash of spell light near the ditch, a horse shrieking once, then nothing, an arrow out of darkness, a man vanishing between 2 torches and leaving only a dropped shield behind. Old war did not always roar. Sometimes it crept close on wet grass and waited for a guard to blink. Caelan did not blink. His mail pinched beneath his left arm. His right boot had taken water. His stomach ached from beans eaten cold and too quickly. Under his tunic, tied on a leather cord against his chest, lay a thumb-sized token of blackened iron. He touched it with the side of his wrist, quick, hidden. The token had once borne the stamped shape of a banner. Years of sweat, rain, smoke, and prayer had worn the mark down until it looked less like a banner than a scar. Caelan knew what it was. That was enough. Beside him, Rennick shifted his spear, still clutching that old scrap. Caelan looked toward the reeds, still watching my hands instead of the dark. If death comes out of that marsh, I would rather hear it early. Then close your mouth and listen. Rennick gave a low grunt that might have been a laugh, then settled again. He was broad, red-nosed, and too cheerful for a man standing between 5 peoples who hated one another and a ritual no one understood. His helmet sat crooked over one ear. Caelan had told him twice. Rennick had fixed it neither time. Beyond them, the ritual field shone like a fallen constellation. The mages had raised it in a hollow where 3 old battle roads met beside a field of black stones. The stones were older than the forts of the march. Some said giants had placed them. Some said they had grown from the ground where the first treaty between men and elves was broken. Some said the dwarves had carved them and refused to admit it. Caelan did not know. He only knew the stones made his teeth ache when he stood too near them. 7 rings of pale script had been cut into the earth and filled with powdered silver, salt, ash, river water, and blood from sworn representatives of the 5 peoples. White lamps burned at the quarters. Banners stood between the rings. The elven banner was green-black silk beneath a silver moon. Dwarven banner was square and dark, with a hammer stitched in red thread. The orcish banner hung from a spear of bone, dyed in old blood and marked with a black handprint. The Fae banner changed whenever Caelan looked at it. The human banner stood tallest, blue and gold, the 7-fold key of Auril, god of magic and hidden fire. Auril of the 7 keys, Auril, opener of ways. His priests moved everywhere within the rings, clean-robed, calm-handed, their faces painted with fine lines of blue ash. War mages stood beside them, with spell rings bright on their fingers and staffs, planted in the mud as if the earth had been made to obey. They had brought no banner for Vaerun, not at first. Caelan had noticed, he wished he had not. Near dusk, old Captain Edrin had argued with a temple steward. Voices had risen. A priest of Oral had made a face as if the name itself were unpleasant. At last, a boy had been sent to the baggage train. He returned with a strip of faded red cloth tied to a plain spear. No sigil, no iron fringe, no priest beneath it. They planted it near the outer ring, half behind a wagon of spare lamps. Vaerun of the Red Banner had been given a rag. Rennick had looked at it and muttered, "There's your old warlord." Caelan had said nothing. He was good at saying nothing. The chapels of Vaerun had emptied long before he was born. In some villages they became granaries. In some towns, armories. In richer places where men knew how to erase a thing politely, the old war altars were rededicated to Oral under gentler names. Discipline, ordered force, lawful defense, the higher courage. But in Brindlemark, Caelan's village, there had still been a shrine. A leaning stone beneath an oak, a rusted bowl for rainwater. A strip of red cloth replaced every spring by whoever remembered. His father had taken him there before Caelan marched to his first levy. "Do not pray to him for victory," his father had said. He had been a narrow man with work-bent shoulders and hands that could mend a plow in the dark. Only fools ask gods for that. Victory is a greedy word. "What do I ask for?" Caelan had said. His father had put the iron token into his palm. "Ask him to see you." Caelan had been 17 then, too young to understand, old enough to pretend he did. Now he was 26 and understood too much. The marsh whispered. Caelan tightened his grip on the spear. Inside the rings, the High Magister lifted both hands. His name was Adrin Velth, though most called him simply the High Magister. He was not from the March. No man that clean could belong to the borderlands. His robes were white beneath a mantle of blue glass scales, and the sevenfold key of Oral hung at his breast in gold. His voice carried without strain. "Let every embassy come beneath the eyes of heaven." The field quieted. The elven singers lowered their veiled faces. The dwarf Thane stepped forward with 2 hammer priests at his back. The orcish envoy stood apart from the rings, thick arms crossed, tusks capped in bronze. His shamans watched the human mages with open contempt. The Fey ambassadors smiled behind their white masks. A line of human nobles waited behind the High Magister. Lords in polished half-armor, ladies with winter cloaks drawn close, commanders with tired eyes, priests of lesser gods, scribes with wax tablets ready. They had come for peace. That was what everyone said. 300 years of border war had left the Middle March full of widows, lost sons, stolen daughters, burned villages, empty granaries, and stories no child should hear before sleep. No people was innocent. No people was finished grieving. The rite would call the gods of the 5 peoples near enough to behold the ruin of their children. Before that divine attention, the embassies would speak the names of the slain, confess old breaches, swear new borders, and bind a lasting peace. Not summon the gods in flesh, not command them, not chain them, only call them to look. That was the official language. The soldiers said less. Most soldiers knew peace was a beautiful word powerful men used shortly before asking someone poor to bleed for it. Still, Caelan wanted it to be true. He was tired, not only in his limbs, though he was that too. Tired in the place where a man kept the faces of those he had buried. Tired of patrol horns in the dark. Tired of watching boys grow quiet after their first skirmish. Tired of old women searching among corpses with the calmness of people who had done it before. If the gods had to be dragged close to end it, perhaps they should be dragged close. He hated the thought. His fingers brushed the token. "Forgive me, Lord of War." The old title sounded foolish in his mind, foolish and dear. The High Magister began. Oral of hidden fire, first among the lawful lights of mankind. Keeper of the measured art, opener of sealed ways, look upon this field. The silver rings brightened. cold blue flame moved through the cut script like water through channels. Every human mage bowed his head. In the distance, even the skirmishing seemed to stop. The High Magister turned north. Lunithar of the moonlit bow, pale crown of the elven night, keeper of memory and sorrow, look upon your children. The elven singers answered in a language older than the road behind them. Moonlight gathered in the mist above their banner. It did not shine down from the sky. It rose from the ground as if the earth remembered being touched by stars. The dwarven priest stepped forward next. Dervhel beneath the hammer, Forge Father, Stone Keeper, Oath under mountain root. Hear what has been broken. The black stones hummed. Somewhere under the field, iron answered. The Orcish envoy did not bow when his goddess was called. Grumara of blood and kin, mother of the red hills, tooth of vengeance, hand over child and slain, come to the red ground. The Orcish shamans began to drum their palms against their own chests. Slow, soft, like hearts heard through earth, then came the Fae. Caelan Marr of the silver tongue, lord of bargains, keeper of names, witness of promise and price, hear what has been sworn. The Fae musicians plucked 6 silver strings. The note that followed made Caelan think of every promise he had ever broken. Then silence. The human priests shifted. The High Magister looked toward the faded red cloth near the wagon. For a moment, Caelan thought he would ignore it. Captain Edrin stepped forward from the line of commanders. He was gray-bearded and leaned on his sword like his knee troubled him. His armor bore no spell script. His cloak was weather-stained. His face was hard in the way of men who had survived too many mistakes to respect clean certainty. Magister, he said. The High Magister's jaw tightened. A few nobles frowned. Captain Edrin did not move. At last, the High Magister lifted his hand again. Vaerun. Just the name, no ring brightened, no flame moved. The High Magister glanced at the captain as if to say, "There, are you satisfied?" The old captain's eyes did not change. The High Magister exhaled through his nose. Vaerun, once Lord of War, he continued. Once called of the Red Banner, iron witness of the battle dead, attend if any lawful claim remains. Once, twice, Caelan's hand closed hard around his spear. Rennick heard the leather creak. Easy, he murmured. Caelan said nothing. Beneath wool and mail, the iron token felt suddenly warm. Far beyond the veil, in a hall grown vast and hollow, Vaerun heard his name spoken like a courtesy offered to a corpse. He did not rise, not at first. Gods do not wake quickly from abandonment. The Lord of War sat upon a throne made from the first sword ever lifted by a frightened hand. Around him stretched a hall wide enough to hold the memory of every army that had marched beneath the sun. Its braziers burned low. Its shield walls were dim. Names had vanished from the bronze rims of the honored dead because the living no longer spoke them. Once, mankind had reached him like the sea. Now there had been only one voice. Small, plain, stubborn, Caelan Marr. A soldier with wet boots and a poor spear. A man who prayed without eloquence. A man who asked for no crown, no conquest, no enemy's ruin, only to be seen. Vaerun turned his head. Across the torn distance between God and world, he saw the middle march. He saw the black stones. He saw Orl's blue light winding through the rings. He saw the embassies, the guarded hope, the hidden knives, the treaties waiting to be spoken by mouths already preparing future excuses. He saw the faded red cloth tied to a spear behind a wagon. He saw Caelan standing near it, the last one. Vaerun knew it. No hidden chapel held a candle for him. No old knight muttered his name before sleep. No mother touched a war token above a hearth. No boy made a frightened promise before his first battle. One man remained, and that man stood guard at a peace rite that had nearly forgotten to call him. Vaerun's hand tightened on the arm of his throne. In the mortal field below, the rite entered its second turning. The silver rings began to rotate without moving. The script in the earth shifted, each line becoming another line beneath it. The lamps burned higher. Blue fire crawled up the banners. The elven moon mist brightened. The dwarven stones throbbed in slow measure. The orcish drumbeat deepened. Caelan swallowed. The rite was working. Against all good sense and all old warnings, it was working. Rennick whispered, "Gods preserve us." "That's rather the hope," Caelan said. Rennick looked at him. Then an arrow took Rennick through the throat. For a heartbeat, Caelan only stared. Rennick's eyes widened in dull surprise. His spear fell. His hands went to the shaft in his neck. He stepped backward once, sat down hard in the mud, and tried to breathe around wood and iron. The marsh erupted. Shapes rose from the reeds, orcs. Not a warband, not enough for battle, a knife thrust. 10, perhaps 12, moving low and fast through gaps no scout had found. Their skin was dark beneath ash. Their tusks were wrapped in black cloth. Their blades were short, heavy, and made for close killing. Someone shouted. A horn blew half a note before another arrow silenced it. The outer guard line bent. The rite did not stop. Inside the rings, the High Magister's voice sharpened. "Hold the perimeter." War mages turned, but not all of them. Most kept their hands lifted over the working. If the rings broke mid-turning, every mage in the field knew something worse than orcs might come through. Blue spell light flashed along the ditch. An orc burst through it screaming, skin smoking, and split a human guard from collar to breastbone. Caelan dropped beside Rennick. Rennick's eyes rolled toward him. His mouth moved around the arrow. No words came. Caelan gripped his shoulder. "I'm here." Rennick's hand caught Caelan's wrist, then loosened. Caelan did not have time to mourn him. An orc came over the low earthwork. He was huge, even bent forward in the charge. Not the hulking brute tavern liars described, but something worse. Fast, wounded, clever-eyed, with 2 arrows already jutting from his ribs and no sign he cared. One tusk had been broken close to the gum. His left cheek was painted with a red handprint, a shaman's mark perhaps, or a mother S. The orc saw the rings, saw the mages, saw the red cloth near the wagon, then saw Caelan. Caelan raised his spear. He was afraid. The knowledge came cleanly, no shame with it at first, only truth. He was afraid of the orc's speed, afraid of the heavy cleaver in his hand, afraid of dying far from Brindlemark under a banner no one honored. Afraid that the gods had come close enough to see him and would still look away. The orc struck. Caelan caught the first blow on the spear haft. The wood cracked. The force drove him back 3 steps and nearly took him off his feet. He twisted, remembered an old drill, and drove the spearpoint toward the orc's belly. The orc turned just enough. Iron scraped over hide and opened a shallow line across his side. The orc snarled. Caelan tried to reset. Too slow. The cleaver came down. He let the broken spear go and drew his short sword. The blade barely cleared the scabbard before the orc was inside his reach. Caelan cut him across the forearm. The orc punched him in the face. The world flashed white. Caelan hit the mud beside Rennick's body. He tasted blood and earth. His sword was still in his hand. That surprised him. He rolled before the cleaver struck where his head had been. The orc stepped over Rennick and kicked Caelan in the ribs. Something cracked. Caelan could not breathe. The rite burned brighter. The High Magister's voice thundered across the field. By name and blood, by seal and vow, by every grief brought to this ground. An elven singer screamed. Dwarf guards roared. A fey instrument snapped a note so sharp it cut men's ears bloody. The orc looked toward the inner rings. For one small moment, Caelan understood him. The orc was not here for Caelan Marr. The orc was here to stop the rite. Perhaps his shamans had seen something. Perhaps Grumara had whispered warning through blood. Perhaps he had only looked at human mages binding divine names into silver rings and decided that whatever peace they promised would come with chains. The orc turned away. Caelan saw his back, saw the path between him and the mages, saw the faded red cloth near the wagon. He heard his father's voice, "Ask him to see you." Caelan rose, not well, not cleanly. He rose with mud on his face, blood in his mouth, one rib grinding when he breathed and fear beating hard enough to shake the sword in his hand. "Here," he rasped. The orc kept moving. Caelan drew breath. It hurt. "Here." The orc turned. Caelan lifted the sword. The orc charged. There was no song in it, no glory. Caelan did not become suddenly graceful because death had chosen him. He did not find some hidden well of skill. He met the charge as the man he was, tired, frightened, stubborn, and too slow. He parried the cleaver badly. Steel screamed. The force numbed his arm to the shoulder. He stepped in because stepping back would have killed him sooner. His sword found meat beneath the orc's ribs. The orc grunted, not from pain but surprise. For half a breath they stood face to face. The orc's eyes were amber. Caelan saw fury in them and grief. Then the orc drove a black iron knife under Caelan's mail and up into his belly. Caelan gasped. The sound was small, almost polite. The orc shoved him backward off the blade. Caelan fell beside the red cloth. The orc took one more step toward the rings. Then 3 human arrows struck him, one in the thigh, one under the jaw, one through the eye. He dropped without a cry. Caelan lay on his back and watched the red cloth above him stir in a wind he could not feel. The rite reached its final turning. The world changed. The space above the black stones deepened as if the night had folded inward. Stars appeared where no stars should be, cold and close enough to touch. The rings shone blue, then white, then colorless. Every banner snapped straight. The gods looked down. Caelan felt it. Everyone did. Men fell to their knees. Elves bowed their heads and wept silver tears. Dwarven priests struck hammers to their own breastplates until the sound became a second heart. The orcish shamans lowered their bloody hands. The Fey ambassadors stopped smiling. For one breath, the 5 peoples stood beneath the attention of heaven. Then the rite revealed what had been hidden inside its script. Not a chain, not exactly. A binding, a sacred summons made to hold what answered. Aural's light accepted it first. Of course it did. The 7-fold key on the High Magister's breast opened like an eye. Blue-white fire poured out. The High Magister rose from the ground, his robes hanging around him in motionless folds. His skin cracked at the brow, the lips, the palms. Light shone through him. His eyes became deep and bright and terrible. Every human mage prostrated himself. Aural of hidden fire had come to the edge of the world. Not fully, not flesh, not yet, but near enough to burn the air with thought. The High Magister smiled with a god's mouth. "Peace," he said. The word rolled over the field. Men sobbed, some from relief, some from terror. Then the other divine presences resisted. The elven moonlight recoiled. The dwarven stones split. The orcish drumbeat became a roar. The Fey banner vanished and reappeared upside down, bleeding dew. The working began to tear. Caelan saw little of it. He was looking at the red cloth. It had been poor even before the wind took it. Faded, frayed, tied badly, forgotten behind a wagon until an old captain shamed a magister into planting it, a rag for a dead god. Caelan tried to breathe, could not. The wound in his belly was warm and deep and wrong. His hands moved over it without instruction. Blood slipped between his fingers, he understood. No priest was needed to explain this kind of thing. The road had narrowed, he thought of Brindlemark. Wet fields, sheep coughing in the cold. His mother humming over mending. His father's thumb pressing the iron token into his palm. Nara laughing with one hand over her mouth. Rennick dead beside him, the orc dead beyond him. The mages still chanting peace while blood soaked into the mud. Caelan laughed once. It hurt too much to do again. His hand found the token beneath his shirt. Somehow the leather cord had snapped. The little piece of blackened iron lay loose against his chest, slick with blood. He brought it up. The stamped banner was almost gone, almost. His lips moved. No sound came. Aural's light pressed against the field. The moonwood answered in silver. The stones groaned. Somewhere, something vast and Fey laughed with every voice Caelan had ever trusted. He did not ask for victory. Only fools asked gods for that. He did not ask to live. He had seen enough dying men to know when a wound had spoken its final word. Caelan drew what breath he could. Vaerun. The name was almost lost beneath the tearing rite. Almost. Beyond the veil in the hollow hall where the shields of the battle dead had gone dim, Vaerun stood. He had heard the official invocation, once Lord of War. Attend if any lawful claim remains. He had heard insult wrapped in ritual courtesy. He had heard Aural's name sung first with lamps and silver and disciplined fire. He had felt the mortal working reach toward the heavens with law hidden in its teeth. But this was different. This was not invocation. This was prayer, the last prayer. Vaerun turned from the wound in the veil and looked down upon the mud beside the borderland rings. He saw Caelan Marr dying under the faded cloth, the last one, the final hand holding the banner, the last mortal voice in all the world that called to him not as relic, not as legal remnant, not as once anything, as Lord. Vaerun left his throne. The war hall trembled. Banners that had not moved in a century stirred in a wind that came from no door. The old shields along the walls answered in faint bronze whispers. Vaerun walked between them, and for the first time in an age, grief moved with him. Not the grief of mothers, not the grief of lovers, the grief of a god worshipped by millions who had failed to notice the shape of one man's loneliness until that man was all he had left. Caelan whispered again, "Vaerun, Lord of War." The field stopped, blood hung in the air. Blue fire froze above the rings. Oral's light paused mid-flare, caught like lightning in glass. The orcish drums fell silent between heartbeats. Every sword on the field trembled in its sheath. Caelan lay alone in the stillness. Then a shadow fell across him, though nothing stood between him and the sky. A voice spoke. It did not thunder, it did not shake the mountains. It spoke close, as if beside a bed. Caelan Marr. The dying soldier opened his eyes. Tears slid from the corners into the mud. "You know me. I have known every prayer you ever gave me." Caelan's mouth trembled. "I didn't give much. You gave what remained." The token burned softly in his fist. Caelan tried to turn his head toward the sound and could not. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "I was afraid." The silence deepened. Around them the world waited. Gods strained against mortal binding. Oral watched from the edge of blue-white fire. Armies hung between one breath and the next. Vaerun, Lord of War, knelt unseen beside his last worshipper. So were many brave men. Caelan closed his eyes. "No, I mean always." "Yes." The answer was gentle, too gentle. It hurt worse than judgment, always. Caelan gave a broken little laugh, and blood moved on his lips. "That is poor comfort, my lord. I am not the god of gentle lies." "No," Caelan whispered. "No, I suppose not." For a moment he was only a man in the mud, and the god who had once stood behind kings remained beside him without crown, spear, or banner. "Did you see?" Caelan asked. "I saw. I tried to stop him." "You did." "I was slow. You were dying. I was scared. And still you rose." Caelan breathed in, shallow and wet. His eyes found the faded cloth above him. "They called you once." Vaerun was silent. The old word hung between them. Once. Caelan's fingers tightened around the token with the last small strength he possessed. They were wrong. The war hall beyond the veil shook. Vaerun bowed his head. For centuries, kings had sworn to him with armies at their backs. Captains had shouted his name as walls broke. Priests had poured blood over iron. Conquerors had promised him cities. Dying men had cursed him. Victors had praised him. Cowards had blamed him. None of them had wounded him like this. A common soldier, bleeding out in mud, defending a rite that barely remembered his god, declaring with his final breath that the world had spoken wrongly. Vaerun placed one unseen hand over Caelan's. "You were the last." Caelan did not understand at first. Then he did. His face changed. Not with pride, not exactly, with sorrow. "Oh." His voice was very small. "Oh, my lord. Do not grieve for me. I'm not." A tear slid down into his hair. "I'm grieving that you were alone." The Lord of War closed his eyes. Across the frozen field, Oral's light flickered. A god of magic, bright with temples and towers and 1,000 prayers, looked toward the place where the forgotten war god knelt over a dying soldier. For the first time that night, Oral was afraid, not of Vaerun's strength, of the prayer. There are powers older than law, older than spellcraft, older than treaty and tower and throne. One of them is the final faithful voice calling into abandonment and being answered. Caelan's breath hitched. Will it hurt? Yes. Will I be alone? No. The answer came before the question had finished. Caelan nodded faintly. That movement cost him. The stillness around the field began to crack. Blue fire trembled. The rings groaned. Auril pressed harder against the rite, sensing the old enemy where no enemy should remain. Caelan's eyes widened slightly. My lord. I am here. I don't want to die afraid. Vaerun leaned closer. The god who had received the prayers of armies spoke to the last man who would ever worship him. Then look at me. Caelan did. No mortal eye could have seen Vaerun in full and remained whole. So Vaerun did not come to him in full. He came as a battle-worn figure kneeling in the mud, a tall man in old armor darkened by rain, a red cloak torn behind him, a face stern enough to frighten kings and tired enough to understand soldiers, eyes like iron in firelight. Caelan looked upon his god and was not afraid. That was Vaerun's last gift to him. Did I serve well? Caelan asked. Vaerun touched the iron token. You kept the banner after the temples forgot where they had put it. Caelan smiled then. Small, astonished, young somehow beneath all the blood and years. Then take it, he whispered. Vaerun went still. Caelan's fingers opened around the token. My body's no temple, he said, his voice faded. But it's what I have. The words entered Vaerun like a blade. The rite tore wider. Auril spoke through the high magister in the frozen light. Impossible. The word did not reach Caelan. Vaerun heard it. Caelan's eyes were dimming. The god of war bent his head. Rest now, Caelan Marr of Brindlemark. The soldier's smile trembled. Will you remember me? Vaerun, keeper of the battle dead, answered. Always. Caelan died. No horn sounded. No light carried him upward. No army knelt. No singer marked the hour. A common soldier's last breath left him in the mud beside a faded red cloth while the greatest rite of the age shattered around him. But he did not die afraid, and he did not die unseen. For one heartbeat after Caelan Marr was gone, Vaerun remained beyond the veil with the dead man's token burning in his hand. Then the rite found him. It had been built to call gods near. It had been shaped to hold what answered. It had expected divine presence, not grief. It had expected names, offices, powers, lawful titles, sacred jurisdictions. It had not expected a god accepting the last gift of his last worshipper. The ritual seized that bond. Auril's binding script flashed across the rings. The fey thread hidden inside the working twisted. The black stone split open and the space between god and corpse vanished. Vaerun fell. He did not fall as fire. He did not descend as a red storm. He did not appear above the field crowned in spears with banners filling the sky. He fell into blood, into torn flesh, into pierced gut, cracked ribs, muddy lungs, numb fingers, a broken nose, an old scar across the left side, bad boots, hunger, and the final warmth leaving a dead man's heart. The Lord of War entered Caelan Marr's corpse, and the corpse screamed. Every soldier on the field heard it. Human, elven, orcish, dwarven, fey. The scream came from a dead throat and carried the sound of every battlefield that had ever known courage. Caelan's body arched in the mud. The black iron token melted into his palm and sank through the skin. Blood around him steamed. The wound in his belly closed, opened, closed again, not healed so much as forced shut by something too ancient to be kind to flesh. His heart stopped a moment before, struck once against his ribs, then again, then again. Each beat sounded like a war drum under the earth. Every sword on the borderland field came half an inch out of its sheath. Broken arrowheads stirred in the soil. Old scars burned on the bodies of veterans who had never prayed. The orcish shamans staggered backward. The elven singers covered their ears. The dwarven hammer priests dropped to one knee, not in worship, but under the weight of something older than their pride. The Fey ambassadors stopped smiling behind their masks. Inside the rings, the High Magister turned his burning face toward the outer guard line. Aurel saw him rise. Caelan Marr's dead body rolled onto one hand. The fingers dug into the mud, the arm trembled. For one humiliating breath, Vaerun could not lift himself. The body was too small, too damaged, too human. Pain struck him from every side. It was not information now. It was weather. It had walls. It filled the room of flesh and left no door. Vaerun had heard dying men pray through pain since the first spear. He had never understood the weight of a rib that would not move, or the terror of lungs refusing air, or the strange insult of a hand shaking when commanded to close. He pushed himself upward. The body failed. He fell back to one knee. Across the field, someone whispered, "That man was dead." Another voice answered, "He still is." Vaerun's hand found the short sword. Caelan's sword, plain, nicked, common iron, the grip worn soft by sweat, the balance poor. He closed his fingers around it. The weapon felt enormous. A god's memory is not the same as a mortal's muscle. The thought rose from the dead man's flesh, not a voice, an imprint, a final kindness, left foot under, elbow close, breathed through the teeth, used the sword. Vaerun stood, not like a god appearing in temple art. He stood as wounded men stand when the ground is all that remains beneath them. Bent, bloodied, shaking, but standing, the field knew him. It did not matter that most men had forgotten the rites. Their blood had not forgotten fear. Their bones had not forgotten the old bargain of shield and blade. Every creature that had ever faced death and lifted a hand against it felt the shape behind the dead soldier's eyes. The old captain who had forced the invocation fell to his knees. His sword slipped from his hand. "Vaerun," he whispered. The name moved through the human line like fire finding dry grass. Not loud. No one dared shout it yet. "Vaerun, Lord of War, Red Banner, gods preserve us." Inside the rings, Aurel's light brightened until men screamed and covered their faces. The High Magister's body rose higher, arms spread, fingers burning with script. No. The word was not human now. It struck the field like a bell made of ice. Vaerun lifted his head. Aurel looked through the High Magister's eyes. God saw God. For a moment, the borderlands became very quiet. Even the wounded stopped crying. Aurel spoke first. "No one still calls you." Vaerun's borrowed body swayed. Blood ran from his nose, his side, his mouth. The dead man's heart hammered because divine will forced it to hammer. He held the sword low because the arm could not yet raise it higher. When he answered, his voice was hoarse. Mortal, torn. One did. The words crossed the field. Captain Edrin bowed his head to the mud. Aurel's face changed. Not rage alone, not fear alone, something uglier because it was both. "I heard your halls go silent," Aurel said. Vaerun looked at the faded cloth, then at the dead orc in the mud, then at Rennick, throat pierced, eyes still open toward a peace he would never see. Then at the mages standing inside silver rings, trying to bind heaven for the good of men who kept dying outside the light. He did not yet understand this age. He did not yet understand this body, but he understood a battlefield. Aurel's peace smelled of command. It smelled of fear dressed in law. It smelled of a leash hidden beneath silk. Vaerun took one step toward the rings. The body nearly fell. A laugh went through the Fey line, thin and delighted. Aurel saw the weakness. So did everyone. The god of magic smiled through the High Magister's cracked mouth. A dead soldier, a field blade, a rag for a banner. Is this what remains of you? Vaerun took another step. His boot slipped in mud. He caught himself on the sword. The humiliation moved across the field as clearly as thunder. The Lord of War could barely walk. Aurel lowered his burning hand. Bind him. The war mages obeyed. Chains of cold light lashed from the inner rings. They crossed the field faster than arrows. Vaerun saw them as war saw them, not spells, intentions, seize, silence, kneel. He tried to move. The body moved late. The first chain struck his left arm and wrapped to the bone. Pain opened white. Vaerun snarled. The sound made horses scream and tear their reins loose. The second chain hit his chest. The third wrapped his sword wrist. He dropped to one knee. Captain Edrin lurched upright. "Shields," he shouted. No one moved. The human soldiers stared between their god of magic and the thing wearing Caelan Marr. The mages tightened the chains. Auril descended within the ring until the High Magister's bare feet hovered inches above the earth. "You were supposed to be empty," he said. Vaerun's fingers tightened around the sword. The chain burned through skin that had already died once. Inside the body, something of Caelan remained, not speech, not thought, memory. A father's hand, a wet valley, a token in a boy's palm, "Ask him to see you." Vaerun bowed his head. For a terrible moment, the Lord of War looked beat. Then his dead hand opened. The melted iron in his palm flared red. Every old weapon buried beneath the middle march woke at once, spears under grass, swords under marsh. Arrowheads lodged in ribs no one had named, broken axes, shield bosses, nails from burned gates. The rusted iron of 300 years of border war answered the last prayer of Caelan Marr. The ground groaned. Auril's eyes widened. Vaerun rose. The chains did not break easily. They cut deeper first. They burned black lines into dead flesh and living godlight. They dragged against his ribs. They pulled his sword arm backward until the shoulder cracked. Vaerun rose anyway, because the last man who loved him had died standing, because one prayer was still enough. The first chain snapped, then the second, then the third. The sound rolled across the field like a war drum struck beneath a mountain. Men cried out. Orcs bared their tusks and beat their chests, not knowing whether they challenged him or greeted him. Elven singers fell silent. Dwarven hammer priests whispered old stone oaths under their breath. The Fey ambassadors leaned forward, hungry with attention. Vaerun lifted Caelan's poor sword. For one heartbeat, the dead soldier's shadow stretched behind him. It was not only a man's shadow, it was a banner, torn, red, vast. Auril stepped back, only one step, but every god and mortal on the field saw it. Rage followed at once. Auril raised both hands, the inner rings blazed. "I will not return mankind to the butcher's altar." Vaerun's answer came low. "I never asked men for slaughter." He took another step, the sword shook in his hand. "I never asked them for songs." Another step, "I never asked them for kings." Another. His eyes lifted to Auril. "I asked them to stand while afraid." The faded cloth tore free from its spear. It should have fallen, it did not. It rose into the air and streamed behind him like a banner remembering its own name. Auril's face hardened. "Then stand." The rite collapsed inward. Cold fire rushed toward Vaerun from all 7 rings. It came with the force of law, oath, seal, command, doctrine, measure, temple, tower, and every prayer ever offered to Auril by men who believed the world could be mastered if only enough names were written correctly. Vaerun could not stop it, not in this body. Not with this sword, not yet. He knew that with cold clarity. The Lord of War had risen, but he had not returned. He was not restored. He was anchored, wounded, mortal-bound. The body of Caelan Marr was a broken gate holding back a god. It would not bear him long. So Vaerun did the first wise thing he had done in centuries. He did not meet the spell. He turned the sword and cut the earth. The blade was poor. The hand was weak. The god behind it was not. The cut opened every grave beneath the outer ring. Not the bodies, not the souls, only the memory of standing. For 300 years, men, elves, dwarves, orcs, and stranger things had died in the Middle March. Not all bravely, not all well, not all for reasons worth the breath it took to name them, but some had stood at gates, in ditches, before children, beside friends, against terror, against orders, against impossible odds. Vaerun called not the dead, but the courage they had left behind. It rose like iron smoke. The cold fire struck it and faltered, not stopped, faltered. That was enough. The outer ring split. The rite screamed open. Auril's binding lost its shape. The gods watching through the veil recoiled. Moonlight vanished. Stone thundered. Blood drums broke into wild rhythm. Fey laughter scattered like glass. Aurel shouted, and the High Magister's body began to burn from within. Vaerun staggered backward. The sword fell from his hand. The red cloth dropped across his shoulders. For a moment he stood beneath it, a dead soldier wrapped in a ruined banner with blood running from every wound the god had forced closed. Then his knees buckled. Captain Edrin reached him first. The man crossed the broken outer ring with no shield, no spell, and no hope of surviving if either god looked at him too harshly. He caught Vaerun under one arm before the body hit the mud. The Lord of War turned his head. The captain was crying. He did not seem to know it. "My lord," the captain whispered. Vaerun looked at him and saw a boy kneeling in some forgotten chapel 50 years before, saw the prayer that had gone cold in him, saw shame, awe, terror, and longing tangled together. "You remembered late," Vaerun said. The captain flinched as if struck. Then Vaerun's borrowed face softened by the smallest measure. "But you remembered." The captain bowed his head. Behind them, Aurel's ruined rite blazed and shrieked. The High Magister hung in the center of it, no longer fully man, not yet fully god. His eyes burned holes through the night. Aurel looked upon Vaerun. "I will find the body you stole." Vaerun leaned on the old captain and reached down with one shaking hand. His fingers closed around Caelan's sword. It was given. Aurel's light folded inward, not fleeing, withdrawing. The sevenfold key on the High Magister's breast cracked down the center. Blue fire vanished into the wound it had made. The field went dark. For several breaths, no one moved. Then the ordinary sounds returned. A wounded horse screaming. A man sobbing, a dwarf coughing blood. The marsh insects beginning again as if gods were only weather. Vaerun looked down at Caelan's dead hand, his hand now. The melted token was gone beneath the skin, but he could feel it there. A small iron heat in the palm, the last prayer, the last worshiper, the last gift. He should have felt triumph, he felt weight. The old captain helped him stand. Around the field, soldiers lowered their eyes, some knelt, some backed away. Some made signs to gods who had not answered them. The orcish shamans watched with unreadable faces. The elven singers whispered among themselves. The dwarven thanes stared as if measuring whether a god could owe a debt. The Fey ambassadors had begun smiling again, which meant they had already found 3 ways to profit from the disaster. Vaerun barely saw them. He saw Caelan Marr lying in memory where the body had fallen. A common soldier, a frightened man, the final keeper of the red banner. The old captain followed his gaze to the mud. "What was his name?" Vaerun asked. The captain swallowed. "I do not know, my lord." Vaerun closed his eyes. Of course they did not know. The last worshipper of the Lord of War had died nameless among the very men he guarded. Vaerun opened his eyes again. "Caelan Marr," he said. The name rolled across the field, not shouted, not proclaimed, spoken. Every blade heard it, every stone, every frightened heart. "Caelan Marr of Brindlemark," Vaerun said. He stood while afraid. Captain Edrin lowered his head. One by one others did the same. Not all, not many, perhaps enough. Vaerun turned toward the torn border road. The body swayed with every breath. Pain waited in him like a kingdom. The sword dragged at his arm. The red cloth clung damply to his shoulders. A god could die in this flesh. Aurel knew it. Soon others would know it. Mages would hunt him, kings would claim him, priests would lie about him, enemies would test him. And somewhere beyond the veil, the gods of the 5 peoples had learned that the mortal world could pull them close and make them bleed. The age of distant gods was ending. The age of flesh had begun. Vaerun took one step. It hurt. He took another. That hurt too. Captain Edrin moved to support him. Vaerun shook him off, not cruelly, carefully. This body had been given to him by the last man who believed. He would learn its weight. He would learn its pain. He would learn its sword. Behind him, the torn red cloth lifted once in the dawn wind. Before him, the borderlands waited. Vaerun, Lord of War, walked into them on a dead soldier's feet, and the first lesson of flesh was pain.